I tried to make this video off the top of my head without sort of rehearsing anything, but I kept forgetting things, overlooking things which I thought were very important. So in order to make sure that I've got everything as clear as I can make it, I've actually written everything down. So this is not going to be so much as an impromptu review, this is actually going to be more like a reading. I saw a YouTube game reviewer describe Shenmue 3 as the worst game he had ever played. Although I was slightly disappointed with the final product, to say it was the worst game I had ever played would make me question what games I had played before. Shenmue 3 is no masterpiece, that's for sure. But in all honesty, Shenmue 3 was never really made for a general audience. Shenmue 3 is a love letter to the early 2000s and was designed with one target audience in mind, the fans. That's why it needed to be kickstarted. Sega and then Microsoft Xbox couldn't take the risk on the expensive game that only appealed to a cult following. A near 20-year wait, and this cult following were given the chance to put their money where their mouth is. So they did, in record-breaking fashion. One of the biggest criticisms I hear from non-fans is that the gameplay is old, and there's not much has changed. This is a fair point that works to the game's advantage and detriment. I was over the moon to play the demo and see how faithful it was to the Dreamcast games. This was honestly my biggest worry. What else could they do? Imagine if they had released a game that was completely different to what the fans expected in order to appeal to a larger audience. Alienate all the fans who threw the money at it at the Kickstarter. It would have been a disaster. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, of course. But in short, Shenmue 3 was not made for a general audience. It was made for the loyal fans, so ultimately, it's their opinion that really matters. If Shenmue 1 and 2 were a triple A game, then Shenmue 3 is probably a single A game, if that is even a thing. And to be honest, I'm happy if it remains here, with the weight of expectation removed and hopefully more freedom to move the series forward. The main reason why I was disappointed in Shenmue 3 was that I didn't feel it moved the story on, and far too much padding in order to artificially extend the game. But let's think about it logically. Shenmue 3 is an 11 series game. We can't honestly expect each new game that it continues to get better and better. Every long series, be it game or film, has its dips. Maybe Shenmue 3 was the wrong part of the story to return to, especially after 18 years. I think if the wait had been between Shenmue 1 and 2, then there would have been far less criticism, as Shenmue 2 is arguably a better game. Perhaps Shenmue 4 will be a milestone in answering questions and asking new ones. I feel the series deserves a fourth installment. And I'm sure after listening to the feedback they can make some changes in much the same vein as they did between 1 and 2. In all honesty, there is not a lot that I feel the game needs to change in order to make the experience more enjoyable. Some of my main criticisms. The stamina bar depleting has already been spoken to death, but I remember one of the biggest complaints, be it tongue-in-cheek, is that players never saw Ryo eat. Well, they fixed it, and the game is arguably worse as a result. So let's be careful what we wish for. The QTEs are way too fast. At first I thought I'm just old and my reactions are slower, so I went back and played Shenmue 1 and Dreamcast, and it would seem my reactions are fine, at least by Dreamcast Shenmue standards. I also don't like how weak Ryo is now, as if all the past events and lessons counted for nothing. Again, this just feels like an excuse to add events to extend the gameplay with tedious tasks. The combat system is fine, although it is a shame throw moves were removed. Also, the new training systems are a good addition. My feeling is that Shenmue 3 was originally meant to be a much smaller part to the series, but with an 18-year wait, it was made to be bigger than originally intended in order to meet expectation. So in conclusion, Shenmue 3 is more than a welcome return, but has a few teething problems adopting to a more modern gaming world. I think they will find it difficult to attract new fans, although not impossible, and should focus on the loyal fan base they already have. With retro-style games making a return and being so popular, I don't see why they can't use what they already have created here, make small changes and continue the series to completion, as cheaply as possible. I think it's fair to say that none of us fans expect it to be the AAA blockbuster revolutionary trailblazing game it once was, but just want to see the series secure and completed. This last section is a complaint specifically that I had. I don't know if anybody else felt the same, but I just felt like it needed to be said, so I've written a little passage here. This next part will contain small spoilers, which is why I left it to the end. The biggest problem I personally had with Shenmue 3 comes when you have to raise the 5,000 yuan in order to buy a book, to learn a move so you can defeat a boss. Being completely unaware, I had spent most of my money buying move scrolls to level up. So I found this grind to raise money so frustrating that I put the controller down and didn't return for 2 days. The problem is, you have to cheat in order to win the money by gambling, saving your game and reloading until you win. You can go to a fortune teller and get lucky colour or number, but at least in my case, they were not always correct. When I was first presented with this, I honestly thought there was going to be a story element to earn the money, but there wasn't. So having to gamble just stopped the story dead in its tracks, leaving me to feel annoyed and frustrated. If the best way to progress in your game is by cheating, then you should really think about changing that part of your game.